Making even a straightforward, inexpensive film is an absolutely excruciating and time-consuming endeavor. And so, it's not uncommon for movies to take a good while to hit screens once principal photography is wrapped. There are some films out there that are only coming to us after an alarmingly long time in the oven. But each is now inching closer and closer to release. So I'm Gareth, this is What Culture, and here are 10 movies coming out years after they were shot. Number 10, Kung Fury 2. Remember Kung Fury, the absolutely wild 2015 short film directed by David Sandberg? The VFX-heavy homage to 1980s martial arts and cop action flicks received rave reviews from critics and has almost 40 million views on YouTube, enough that Sandberg was able to secure funding for a feature-length sequel. Kung Fury was shot back in the summer of 2019, wrapping in September of that year, with an impressively star-studded cast including Michael Fassbender, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Alexandra Shipp, Jorma Taccone, and David Hasselhoff. And yet, 5 years later, we've still seen just a few images, reportedly due to a lawsuit between the film's investors causing post-production to be halted in late 2020. But by April of this year, Kung Fury 2 had completed production, and yet it remains trapped in nebulous release limbo due to the aforementioned legal issues. Alex Lebovitchi, head of one of the film's production companies, Hammerstone Studios, expressed hope that the matter will be resolved shortly. But as ever, sorting through legal red tape takes an infuriating amount of time, people. So for now, we wait. Number 9, Salem's Lot. Stephen King adaptations are about as sure things as horror movies get, so it's surprising that Warner Brothers' new take on King's hit novel Salem's Lot has taken so damn long to hit screens. Directed by Conjuring universe writer and director Gary Doberman, Salem's Lot began filming in September 2021 with an intended release date of September the very next year. However, reshoots ended up occurring in mid-2022, causing its release to be delayed to April 2023, shortly before it was rumored that Warner Brothers was looking to move it from theatrical to streaming. The film languished in post-production purgatory for long enough that even King chimed in, asking why the studio wasn't releasing Salem's Lot, having seen it himself and seeing no reason for its release to be held up. What was going on? Finally, it was recently confirmed that the film would release on the Max streaming service this coming October, more than 3 years after cameras started rolling. Now that'd be a long time for a blockbuster, but for a sensibly budgeted horror film, it's basically an eternity. Speaking of blockbusters, number 8, Mission Impossible 8. Production on the last 2 Mission Impossible movies has been tough to say the least, what with Dead Reckoning Part 1 starting shooting at the beginning of the pandemic, resulting in filming being halted numerous times. As a result, it took more than 18 months for principal photography to be completed, and the film wasn't released until well over 3 years after cameras started rolling. And the currently untitled 8th and apparently final movie is set to follow a similar timeline, as it began filming in March 2022 and at the time of recording is still shooting. The shoot dragging on for over 2 years is in large part due to the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike, holding up production for roughly 8 months. And with the film currently penciled in for a May 2025 release, it'll certainly be tight to get it through post-production in time, especially given that it's not actually done filming yet. I bet they'll still be filming it when it releases. And while we're talking about Tom Cruise in a big old action film, I want to know, what do you think is the greatest Tom Cruise performance of all time? Was it one out of the Mission Impossible franchise or something else? You let me know in the comments section right down below. Number 7, White Bird. In 2017, the Julia Roberts, Owen Wilson, and Jacob Tremblay starring adaptation of R.J. Palacios' novel Wonder was a critical and commercial smash, but it certainly seemed like a one-off project. Except in 2019, Palacios released a prequel graphic novel, White Bird: A Wonder Story, which per Wonder's box office success was fast-tracked into a movie adaptation. White Bird began filming in February 2021, with an intended release date of September 2022, yet it bafflingly received numerous delays before eventually being pulled from Lionsgate's calendar altogether. The SAG-AFTRA strike further pushed White Bird's release, and though it finally ended up releasing in Italy, Croatia, Slovenia, Portugal, and Poland at the start of 2024, it won't hit most major markets until this October. Given that there haven't been any reports of White Bird having a troubled shoot, it's truly strange that this one has taken almost 4 years since filming began to finally land in cinemas. And considering that it's grossed just $3 million on international release, well, things aren't exactly looking good for its wider bow. Number 6. The Toxic Avenger. A reimagining of the classic trauma splatter film The Toxic Avenger wrapped shooting in August 2021, with a stellar cast including Peter Dinklage in the title role, Jacob Tremblay, Kevin Bacon, and Elijah Wood. Despite the seemingly modest production, it was another 2 years before the film resurfaced, premiering at Fantastic Fest last September, and playing a few other prominent genre festivals such as Beyond Fest and Sitges later that year. It was then expected that The Toxic Avenger would release sometime in early to mid 2024, and yet almost a full year after its premiere, it's still without a release date. Recent reports state that the film is stuck in release limbo due to Legendary Pictures insisting upon a theatrical release, despite its paper-thin commercial prospects. The words unreleasable and not safe enough to market have been thrown around, while Dinklage himself recently said he has no idea if it will ever be released. That does not sound good. Now, while The Toxic Avenger will surely end up releasing eventually, possibly on a streaming service like Shudder, it's still clearly going to be a maddeningly long time after production packed up. Thank you very much for stopping by to check out this list today, you awesome legend you. And if you're enjoying your fine self, then hit that subscribe button down below and you will get more of these What Culture videos in your life. I know that's what you want. Number 5. Avatar: Fire and Ash. The rolling production on James Cameron's Avatar sequels is one of the most ambitious and mind-boggling undertakings in Hollywood history. It's a very Cameron move. Cameron began shooting the second and third films, Avatar: The Way of Water and Avatar: Fire and Ash, consecutively in September 2017. Performance capture on both films was completed by November 2018, and live-action shooting for Fire and Ash was finished in December 2020, an entire 2 years before The Way of Water itself was even released. Additional reshoots were conducted in the summer of this year, bringing Avatar 3's entire filming cycle to a mind-boggling 7 years. But given that it isn't scheduled to release until December 2025, that is a full production time of well over 8 years. And considering that a few select scenes for Avatar 4 were shot at the same time as the second and third films, and it's slated for a December 2029 release no less, its own production will extend past a full decade. That is wild stuff. Number 4. The Unbreakable Boy. The Unbreakable Boy, adapted from the acclaimed novel of the same name by Scott Michael Lorette and Susie Flory, has had a rough go of it. The family drama about a boy with brittle bone disease and autism wrapped shooting in late 2020, and despite being a fairly unassuming drama film from a production perspective, 4 years later it still hasn't come out. After numerous delays, The Unbreakable Boy is currently penciled in for a February 2025 bow, though considering it was originally set to drop in March 2022, is there really any guarantee that date will stick either? Don't get your hopes up. As with White Bird, Lionsgate's strategy is deeply odd here, making an adaptation of a hit novel whose production seemingly went smoothly, holding its release back for literally years, and then appearing to just dump it in cinemas with little fanfare. Very weird. Even if The Unbreakable Boy isn't a good film, the sheer brand identity of the novel could be enough to make it a modest success, at least if Lionsgate put any real effort into marketing it. Number 3. The Collected. When it comes to The Collected, the sequel to cult horror films The Collector and The Collection, we have to use the words coming out very carefully. After all, it still hasn't finished principal photography almost 5 years after it began. The threequel started shooting in September 2019, but after just 8 days of filming, production was unexpectedly shut down. 2 attempts to resume production failed, before director Marcus Dunstan claimed that the film's producers had cut contact with him, and because he doesn't own the rights to the collector IP, he can't pursue other avenues to continue shooting, though it seemed like the collected was dead for several years. Back in July, Dunstan revealed that the film was finally free, and he was planning to complete it in due course. Now, nothing's set in stone yet, but it seems like whatever legal and logistical hurdles were holding production up have now been resolved. Praise be! Number 2, Havoc. Havoc, the latest film from the Raid director Gareth Evans, was shot in Wales between July and October 2021, with the fair expectation being that the Tom Hardy starring action thriller would land on Netflix by late 2022. But 2024 is now nearing its end, and we've still not seen a trailer nor anything beyond a single still of Hardy. Though rumours swirled online that Havoc was suffering through extensive post-production issues, Evans himself recently claimed that the delays were largely due to a combination of industry strike action and scheduling issues, the latter likely due to Hardy filming Venom: The Last Dance. So blame Venom. Reshoots were finally conducted this summer, with the picture reportedly aiming for a January 2025 release. It's certainly an enticing project with a stacked supporting cast. It's also got Forrest Whitaker, Timothy Olyphant, and Louise Guzman in it. So here's to hoping that there's genuinely no untoward reason for its delayed release, eh? I just need some more Hardy in my life. And number 1, The Fire Inside. Probably the most unlucky film on this list is The Fire Inside, a biopic of boxer Claressa T-Rex Shields from cinematographer turned director Rachel Morrison. The drama began filming in March 2020, though was shut down after just 2 days of shooting due to the pandemic. Filming was finally set to resume in June 2021, but Universal ended up departing the project, causing it to be put into turnaround. It was only when MGM picked it up that production was able to resume in May 2022, well over 2 years after the first few shooting days took place. Though production wrapped later that year, it was almost a whole 2 years before we heard much new about it, with the film now slated to premiere imminently at the Toronto International Film Festival. Yet with MGM plotting its theatrical release for this Christmas, it at least seems like the studio considers it worthy of being in the awards conversation. As ever though, we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? After all these years though, at least these movies are finally making it to the screen. They got there in the end, you'll love to see it.